Okay, we are recording. All right. Okay, so welcome everyone. We're excited that you're here for the note-taking and citing sources in school library session with Courtney Grimaldi and Becca Munson. Becca Munson is a librarian at Blue Valley West High School. She is a national board certified teacher with 20 years in education. She opened the library at West in 2001 and then opened the library at Blue Valley Southwest in 2010. She returned to West in 2016 after a brief stint as an ed tech specialist. She is a blogger for ASL's Knowledge Quest. Courtney Grimaldi is a librarian at Blue Valley West High School. She is a former ELA teacher from West, transitioning into the library in 2016. She has 10 years in education. Courtney serves on multiple district committees, including the Library Curriculum Committee and the High School Study Committee. She has been awarded numerous grants from Follett, Blue Valley Ed Foundation, and her parent community. And I would just like to add that we are very excited that Becca and Courtney could share their knowledge and experience. I found them on Twitter looking for examples of school librarians who are using Noodle Tools. And when I saw what they were doing, it blew my mind. It was very exciting. It's interesting. It looked amazing. So I am so glad that Becca and Courtney can come talk to us today about what they do in their work in their library. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Becca, as was mentioned, Jenna mentioned, and Courtney's right there. We work together in our high schools in our district. There are 2 librarians. And so we're fortunate to be able to tag team with different classes and with this. So it's kind of how we work together. So we're going to go back and forth. I am going to share my screen. And hopefully, you know what's so crazy with all the stuff that we've done this year? It has been, we have not had to Zoom like a lesson this year. It's kind of crazy. I can't get over it. Because last year, that's all we did. All right. I take it you guys can see our screen now. Yes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So yes, as Jenna mentioned, we like to utilize social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram. Courtney is awesome with our Instagram, posting pictures and with her fancy camera and showing what we do. It's a great advocacy tool, and you get to see other librarians, what they're doing, but also they get to see what you're doing. So it's I highly recommend it for your library to have a library account. Our parent community loves it as well. So note-taking and citing sources. I hear that everyone has a Noodle Tools account, and we may have some people in here that are going to be librarians, I hear, or maybe are school librarians or in education somehow. So we're taking it with that lens. But if we miss something, this is your time. This is for you to ask questions, join as a conversation, stop us at any time. We get excited, so we start going on something, but at any point, we want to be able to answer your questions and make this a valuable time. And those that are on the recording, please feel free to email us or DM us on social media. We're here to answer questions. We kind of love that kind of stuff. So utilizing Noodle Tools. We use Noodle Tools, and I'm not going to go into who we are again, but why do we use Noodle Tools? I'm old enough to remember days where we didn't have the citation makers and all that kind of fancy stuff. And actually at one point I created a citation maker, like citation machine with like PHP, and I really nerded out with it. And then there were sources that started free tools, and they were great, but they had so many ads and so many, gosh, it just drove me nuts, the ads. Let's just say like EasyBib free or citation machine free just was really a lot to get through. And so Noodle Tools became a tool that we looked at right when we started in 2016 and jumped right into it again. It's affordable. We have a high school of 1,700 or so students. And so for us, I'm going to say it's around $400. I'll say that. It's so affordable. Most things, our databases are not like that. And it does so much. The other thing is our middle school feeder students come up to us with Noodle Tools knowledge, especially we have one middle school that uses it all the time. They are like experts. And then we actually in the district have a few elementary librarians that use it. So if you're interested in the elementary side of it, I can give you some names later. Just reach out to me because we do have a few elementary librarians that are using it. But anything else I'm missing there, Courtney? Let me just say that we recognize that it's not perfect and that it doesn't do everything and that sometimes it does too much and that's overwhelming to people as well. So for us, we try to make it do what we want it to do. And we see for the next step of college for our students that it's just a springboard to the next step, RefWorks or whatever that is really fancy and really expensive that we can't afford yet.
Yeah, and so we included this slide on here because, like Becca said, we have it at every level in our district. And so the other day I was working with a group of students, ninth graders, and we were just using it for the basic, we just needed them to export their sources from a database. And one of the reasons we like Noodle Tools so much is if you're using Gale databases, they have this cool export feature where you click export and you click Noodle Tools and it just pops it right over and it's already done. They don't have to do anything. It puts it into their project. It's very seamless and very easy. And I was working with a group of kids, and over at another table, there was a group of 4 boys. And one of the boys said, "Man, I just really like Noodle Tools. It really keeps my research organized." And he was a boy who had been using Noodle Tools at the middle school level. And I popped up and I was like, "What did you say?" And I was like, that makes my librarian heart really happy. Can I quote that? And so I just grabbed that and I wrote it down because I was like, I love to hear that. And most people are like, research and Noodle Tools. So we wanted to include that because, after a while, our kids really appreciate it. The research at the beginning is kind of like a drag, but I think they really start to see the benefit and the value of the quick seamlessness of it all.
Yeah, we love when we get stories like that. Courtney's so good at finding out that information from students and overhearing it. So we're going to start with how we utilize it in practice, what lessons we use, and then we'll go into some of the specifics of the ins and outs of Noodle Tools. So let me see if I'm going to go. So the way things work with our library and the way we set it up, we have a library webpage. It's run off of LibGuides, which is a SpringShare product. I've used LibGuides probably since maybe a year after it came out, and it is a fabulous tool and a great time saver. And I could do a whole thing on it, how much I love it. But a class or a teacher works with us, and we develop a lesson, and then we develop a LibGuide that has resources for students. And it may be Noodle Tools related, it just depends. But the way it sets up for this example, a lot of times teachers come to us and say, "Hey, I just want my kids to find some resources. We're studying whatever it is, and I just want them to find some resources." So typically what we do is we know that we have a library media curriculum. We also know their curriculum, and they have some literacy skills embedded in social studies or ELA and so on. So we try to mesh the two and cover as many objectives as possible. So like a jumping off ground with Noodle Tools is creating an annotated bibliography. It's a way for students to still do the gathering of information that teachers like, but it also through Noodle Tools, and when they cite, they're evaluating their sources just inherently by looking up the author, the title, and so on. You are evaluating that source. And I always say, if you can't find information, is it really the right source to use? If you're having trouble finding out who the publisher was or the date it was given. It also does the summarizing and paraphrasing skills that are embedded a lot of times in the curricular areas, but also in our library media. So an annotated bibliography is usually what we start with. And here's one LibGuide that we have that we used last year. We still hope we'll get to use some of it again with the help with our humanities class. And so we try to keep it simple to an extent, but we always have a tab. As you see up the top, this is annotated bibliography. And this is an example of a teacher that said, I just want them to do like a gallery walk or where they find all these sources. And so we then, you know, discussed and wrapped our head around it a little more and said, hey, let's do something more with this. We've done a lot of gallery walks. We've done a lot of just finding information. Let's do something with our databases and with our Noodle Tools account. And so this is an example of what we would create with LibGuide. And then, as you know, Noodle Tools, we use it all out for research. So it's just part of our research process, whether you might have the big six or, you know, I was telling Courtney, I'm like, I haven't been like to, you know, I haven't got my degree in a long time. And, you know, back in the day, we were all about big six or different modes. But what's so nice is that Noodle Tools follows the process very well and easily. And so whatever, I believe whatever model you are using for research, it will fit right in with it, which is awesome.
So we're talking about a couple of different projects that we've done because like Becca said at the beginning, we use Noodle Tools and fit it to what the teacher's asking. We don't use all of the features all at one time. So for this science project, for instance, the teacher wanted the students to import the citations from this Gale database, and then she said, here's some additional databases if you want, but start with this Gale database, which is why we made it huge. And then we had this tab on citing sources. So we had information where we took the Noodle Tools example and just showed them, had a video that showed them how to grab the source from the database and pop it over into Noodle Tools. The Notecards area, which we're going to talk about here in a second, is so nifty in Noodle Tools because it tells you when you open a note card, here's where you directly copy and paste from your source. Here's now where you paraphrase, and here's where you connect it to your research. So it really walks our students and us through what goes into each piece of the research process, and it helps us and our students like walk through, like we're not copying an entire paper, we're copying bits and pieces of information and connecting little pieces of information to create our note cards. So then we connected our note sources, and then in Noodle Tools you can switch from MLA to APA to Chicago. So for this, we switch to APA, and we show our kids how to switch to APA. If they mess up and they accidentally select MLA, it's super simple to switch it over to an APA format in that. The next project was an ELA community concern, and this was an upper level group of kids who had been using Noodle Tools for years. So we created this checklist, which was super simple. Create a project. They already knew how to do that. Make it an MLA format, share it with your teacher. So another, again, nice feature about Noodle Tools is that teachers can log in and create projects that the students can share to, so the teachers can see the research process before anything's turned in and start checking their sources before the project's over. It's kind of like having a checks and balances before the project's over with. So they shared their project with their teacher. That way the teacher can check in with them before the project is completed and see what sources they're saving, what they're saying on their note cards, and kind of have conversations with them. They can leave notes to them and things like that. They can cite their,
oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. And then we wanted them to cite their sources and create note cards. Now you can flip, that's okay, sorry. Noodle Tools also has this part where they add their research question and their thesis, so that they're always looking back at their research question as well. Is this me?
And
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, I will say our teachers love it for the fact of group work. You can share as a group one project, so you have one person create the project and share with everyone else in the group, and then citations can be loaded into their note cards and so on, which is really handy for a group project because obviously someone will be gone and their work can continue. They can share it, as Courtney mentioned, with the teacher, And then the opportunity, we use Google Docs a lot, so they can print and export into Google Docs. That's been something that our students really like, not only with the citations, but with the note cards. And if they do the note cards correctly, as we tell them, then the paper almost writes itself, and it's amazing. And they don't know how lucky they are. We tell them this all the time. You are so lucky to have this because it does so much for you and really allows our kids to focus on the content.
Yeah, when you hit that print and export piece, it's going to put the citation in the works cited format for you. It puts the header there, it does the indent, it does the double space, it puts the periods where the periods go. I tell the students, it writes the works cited page for you, which to me, I'm just mind blown by that. I'm like, you are so lucky you don't have to like know how far you're indenting and that you're making sure things are in alphabetical order. It does all of that for them.
And one of the things, if you have hesitant teachers, or if you are a hesitant teacher yourself and thinking this is a lot for my kids, I always say just use it for what you need. So if you just need citations, maybe you're having students make a video and their notes are with their storyboard, but you still want them to cite their images and some of the sources they're using, then just use it for citing sources. Or if you are doing an all-out thing, then you go use everything. Or maybe you just want to focus on the paraphrasing and summarizing. Those are pieces that we try to scaffold as students go along with us from freshman year to senior year. Some of them come to us, and especially from the middle school level, where they dove into every single piece. And we, even as they get older, especially junior, senior year, mostly senior year, we will say, use it for what you need. And if you prefer to take notes a different way, then that's fine. Because we don't want to force them to and end up hating it. They usually come back around once they try. And we even had a US history class that was bemoaning Noodle Tools, and we ended up saying, okay, let's just do note cards and let's do the old school way. And we knew we were going to change back. And that process alone just helped them realize what all that they have in their available to them. Okay, we're going to take a breather. Any questions? Have to do wait time longer on Zoom, so just. Oh, I didn't want to share. What did I click share? I'm so used to that. Oh my gosh, I go on autopilot. Okay. Now we have just a quick overview of Noodle Tools and what you can use with Noodle Tools. Maybe, let's see. Let's see what my computer's doing, if it's loving me today. There we go. By the way, we use Google Slides a lot. We can embed it into our LibGuides account, our LibGuide pages. And this is one that we embed a lot into our upperclassmen pages, where we may go over a few pieces of Noodle Tools, but then later they can go back to this. So it has a lot more text than what we normally would put on, but it gives us what we need. So Courtney, interject anytime. I'm just going to run through this, but your work is going to be organized into projects, and it's been fun this year because Noodle Tools changed their interface from last year. So it's kind of fun in a way, because some kids come in and they're like, whoa, how do I even do this? But once we get going, if you've used Noodle Tools in the past, the tabs are across the top, and now they're on the left-hand side. So everything can be accessed that way, and they leave the projects up over in the center, and then you open it to get to what you need. Your sources are listed. What's nice, it tells you the type depending on how you've imported it. This example, you can tell I've used this as an example with class because it's the same one, same sources. So ignore the effectiveness of it, but our sources are over here on the left, and it will put them into, and as you can see, most of these are imported. That is our gateway into getting kids to use Noodle Tools. That import feature is great. It also encourages the use of databases. We don't negate using a Google search. There are times for that, and we usually say that that is, a start maybe, or at the end, but it's not where you're going to leave your research, that you're going to dive deeper into our databases. And if we make Google the Apple, they can't, then everybody's going to want to use it. So what naturally helps is the import feature, because students don't want to fill out every single box, and they don't want to try to find the date and so on. And that takes a lot of time. And with that, that's as I mentioned, it's part of the evaluation process, and that's not easy. And so the import feature, we keep pushing that, because it does allow our kids to stay in our databases a lot more. So as we mentioned, the print export feature now is this little printer icon where you can click and then choose to send to Word if you're not a Google Docs district, or a rich text file, or just print right away. And a lot of times our students just use Google Docs. And as it was mentioned, it puts it in the correct format and so on. Our note cards view gives you two views. So you could use tabletop or detailed. I personally like tabletop. Some people like the detail view. It just depends on, I just like, it looks like note cards, and you can make different colors and so on. The outline feature is awesome. So make sure you check that, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Here's an example of a note card that we may use with students, where it provides the title and then the source and then tags. We don't focus so much on tags, but if you have a really big research project where you need to add additional keywords to search for additional note cards, you can use tags as well. What's really nice is it has an in-text reference. So if you're focusing on in-text citations, it will provide not only information, but what will be in that in-text citation. Oh, I will go back. It's really important and really easy for students to choose the source from the drop-down. So if they have the source cited, then they're just going to click on that drop-down arrow and be able to choose their citation. If they don't have it cited, then they won't have this connected.
They can also, from their sources page, click new note card, and it'll pop down right underneath their source, and they can fill out their note card right underneath their source. So that's another nice feature. And in this one, we've already filled it out, but when the students are filling it out complete or brand new, this information that's in this gray box will be kind of like shaded behind it, telling the students what needs to go in this box right here in this direct quotation. It'll tell them, this is what you put in this box, and this is what you put in this box.
I think our biggest obstacle with students learning this piece is not, and Courtney mentioned it a little bit, but not to copy paragraphs of information, and just because you can, back in the day with the index cards, you wouldn't want to. And so getting them to take what is the main idea and put that and copy and paste that into that spot, that's been something that we are continuously working on up until really junior year. They really do struggle with that. And then the other box is where they paraphrase and summarize. And what we've done with the note card, because it's kind of hard for kiddos, quotation, and then I paraphrase, and then the next step. And so what we've started doing is, depending on the grade level, so for ELA classes and our social studies, they often use a quote sandwich, where they have the information, the quote, the introductory sentence, the quote, and then the commentary. So what we've done is have the quote on the left, and then the paraphrase or summarize, and Courtney, correct me if I can, or help me explain this better, but the paraphrase or summarize is that first introductory part, and then the my ideas is the commentary. And that frames it for the kiddos. So then really when we go to outline, a lot of the pieces of the paper are already in there.
Yeah, and one other thing I was going to say, those little question marks next to each box, the paraphrase and summary and the my ideas, when you're in Noodle Tools and you click on those, it'll have a little pop-up with more information about how to fill in that box as well. So Noodle Tools, I mean, I feel like we're we should be getting paid for Noodle Tools because we're like, yay, Noodle Tools. But I just feel like it does such a good job at walking through what goes where, and it's so easy to use, and the interface is so easy, and it's just hard to mess up creating a note card and keeping things organized in here, and exporting things and importing things. And so even if a student's confused about how do I paraphrase something, I don't know what paraphrasing means, clicking on that little question mark, it explains, here's what paraphrasing means, or here's what writing a summary looks like of something. And so it helps explain it a little bit more.
And I will also add, with quote sandwiches, we do that primarily with our ELA and social studies, but with science, when they do their argumentative paper that we just did with some of them a couple weeks ago, we don't teach the quote sandwich in science. So what we do is we adjust what they need. So this is an example of a science one where they do actually paraphrase, because they don't end up using the quote. They do not quote in their science papers. And so my ideas usually is about the implications and so on. And so that's just, helping the kids learn the differences between subject areas, not only for APA and MLA, but also how you do take notes in the paper. There are so many things that you can do with this, and we focus on those three. There's tags you can also add, but for our students, we make the rest of that part optional, unless we have a specific question or lesson that goes through it. And you can get fancy with the note cards. You can put them into piles, which is nice. This is the tabletop view, which I like because you can color code, you can drag into piles, and but the detail view is, I don't know, do you use the detail view, Courtney? I don't as often. No, we all like tabletop. All right. Now, what we really love, and we wish more of our students and teachers would use, is the outline feature. The outline, you have to now check outline up at the top to use it, to have it appear. And then over to the right, you can add or create, I guess I should say, your outline, and then drag your note cards to where they fit on the outline. And what's so nice is if they do their note card really well, if they make basically their quote sandwich note card really well, when they go to export, it does it for them. And then what we say, because they will export into Google Docs, then they can craft it. They know what source it came from. They know the direct quote. Do I need to keep the quote in here? Do I not need to keep the quote in here? And so on. It is amazing, amazing, amazing. And it makes our teachers' lives easier and our lives easier when we are assessing and looking through their work. And there's how to print and so on. That is where we are with Noodle Tools. All right. That's it. We are ready for any questions or anything else we should add. Please let us know.